Hello, YouTube. Growing up around such a rich cultural history of Western Pennsylvania, I decided to go out and take advantage of this gift and explore the American frontier.
Everybody, and we're at this house, and we've been explored.
And in doing this, I've learned a few things. So,
We were gonna stay for sunset, but
Get a little cold out.
we're pussies.
No longer are the hills a mystery, but often lost in them are its history. My family came to America on the passenger ship Harley.
in the year 1736,
With the German migration to Penn's woods, the Palatine movement had a huge impact on how Penn's woods were to be carved out. The folks that settled these lustrous hills of the farming wonderland fought hard to establish a community and family heritage to preserve for future generations. So this weekend, I traveled deep into Penn's woods to explore the parts of the American history that somehow got tucked between the newspaper headlines. And as I headed off to explore the Amish country of Smicksburg and learning about their local communities, I was drawn towards the history that spoke to me in the trees as I drove deeper into the Allegheny Mountains. And just outside Pittsburgh, traveling through Armstrong County, is an early settlement town known as Kittanning. Captain Jacobs, a Delaware chief from the Ohio Valley, traveled far and through dangerous territory to come to Philadelphia in August 1755.
The dramatic defeat of General Braddock's army a month earlier had emboldened the French, who continued to build fortifications in Jacob's homeland.
While skeptical of the British professions of friendship for the Indians, Jacobs was still going to need their aid to resist French encroachments in the Ohio Valley. He came to Philadelphia to request supplies from Pennsylvania Governor Robert Hunter Morris. But Morris was unwilling to dip into the Penn family pockets, and the Quaker-dominated assembly would not appropriate money for the military expenditures. Captain Jacobs returned home empty-handed, and relations between Pennsylvania and the western Delaware hit a new low. Thus, Jacobs and the western Delaware found themselves allies of the French by default.
Kittanning, a populous Delaware and Shawnee town on the Allegheny River, served as a base for the raids on colonial settlements. When Fort Granville in Wyandotte Valley fell to the Indian attack on July 1756, Colonel John Armstrong raised a provincial force to attack Kittanning and recover the captives held there.
In a surprise dawn raid on September 8, 1756, Armstrong and his men destroyed Kittanning and killed and scalped Captain Jacobs, as well as his wife and son, as they tried to escape their burning cabin. Despite their efforts, Armstrong's forces recovered only 7 captives, and during their return trip home, lost several times the number of casualties and captives during reprisal raids and Indian war parties.
The raid on Kittanning was celebrated as a great victory in Pennsylvania, and a commemorative medal was struck in Philadelphia in Armstrong's honor. However, the impact of Kittanning in the course of the French and Indian War in Pennsylvania was questionable.
Colonial forces failed to follow up with any decisive actions against the hostile Indians in western Pennsylvania in 1756 or 1757, alienated any pro-British sentiment that had been remained along the western Delaware. Furthermore, it was a harbinger of the scorched earth tactics that colonial and British forces would use in fighting Indians during the French and Indian War and American Revolution, including the burning of villages and crops and the murder of unarmed women and children. What had been a frontier of intercultural exchange and accommodation during the first half of the 18th century became during the 1750s a zone of interracial violence and hatred.
When the Indians were told that they would be burnt if they did not surrender, one of them replied he did not care, as he would kill 4 or 5 before he died. As the heat approached, some began to sing. However, some ran out of the houses in an attempt to reach the river, but they were shot down before they could make it.
Kittanning, the seat of Armstrong County, is the oldest identified Indian town in western Pennsylvania. Kittanning was settled by the Delawares prior to 1730 and eventually became an important spot, particularly during the French and Indian War. Shingas, king of the Delawares, occasionally resided with Captain Jacobs at Kittanning. In 1755, It is believed Shingas actually lived in Kittanning, and the location became very important as Indians congregated there to avoid the French and Indian conflict around the forks of the Ohio.
Kittanning was settled by the Delawares when they moved westward, about 1724, from the Wyoming and Minnesink, New York region. The name means simply a great river, which is an allusion to its location on the left bank of the Allegheny, which the Indians considered an extension of the Ohio. By the time of the French and Indian War, it had become an important spot for the Indians and traders.
According to the late Henry C. Golden, attorney and charter member of Armstrong County Historical Society, incorporated January 31st, 1924, Kittanning was strategically important as a base for the Delaware raids on the Pennsylvania frontier. Captain Sam Jacobs lived on the north side of the present Market Street between Grant Avenue and McLean Street.
Armstrong County, of course, derives its name from Colonel John Armstrong, later General Armstrong.
Kittanning, destroyed by Colonel Armstrong September 1756, the medal shows a log cabin in flames. To the right of the Allegheny River, in the foreground an officer accompanied by two men, pointing to his soldier firing under cover of a tree, and an Indian falling on the bank of the river. Numerous raids upon white settlements originated from Kittanning. In order to provide protection and gain better strength, a plan was designed to attack the Indians at Kittanning. With the approval of Governor Robert Hunter Morris, Lieutenant Colonel John Armstrong, commander of the 2nd Battalion of Pennsylvania Regiment, devised secret plans for an attack.
With the secret information he obtained from an escaped prisoner, John Baker, and a force of 300 men, Armstrong took Kittanning.
The description of Armstrong's victory is contained in Historic Pennsylvania Leaflet No. 17, published by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. In summary, although the raid was expensive and risky, it provided real benefit by boosting the morale of the settlers as well as inflicting a setback to the Indians. The Delaware abandoned their settlements at Kittanning. In the course of the battle at Kittanning, it is believed that Captain Jacobs' house was set on fire, and he, his wife, and his son were shot as they fled.
Many people believe Armstrong County was not important during the American Revolution. The many graves of the county, with the men who fought during the war, would belie that point.
In the third volume of Pennsylvania, Colonial and Federal, it is noted that a group of armed men, commanded by Captain Samuel Moorhead, gathered and at the outbreak of the war was stationed at Kittanning.
No mention of Armstrong County would be complete without at least the reference of old Captain Samuel Brady. About much has been written.
If you want to learn more about Samuel Brady, check out my channel, Exploring the American Frontier, where we have all kinds of frontiersman stories from Samuel Brady, Lewis Wetzel, Simon Kenton, Jim Baker, and many, many more. Come and check out Exploring the American Frontier and subscribe to be a part of a community of frontiersmen keeping history alive.
Brady served as a scout for General Braddock, and according to Smith's History of Armstrong County, Pennsylvania, had Delaware Joe as his closest friend. H.R. Fleming of Kittanning is quite an authority on Brady. He noted that Brady set out to seek revenge for the death of his father and brother. A bounty was eventually placed on Brady's head, and a trial was finally held in 1793 in Pittsburgh. Brady was cleared of the charge, and then began scouting for Anthony Wayne. Armstrong County, as noted previously, derived its name from Colonel Armstrong, later General Armstrong. General Armstrong purchased 556.5 acres from the province of Pennsylvania for a tract dated March 22, 1755. One of the early pioneers was Captain Andrew Sharp.
Sharp was commemorated with a town in himself named Sharpsburg.
The first Kittanning School was opened in 1805, taught by Adam Eliot. It was located in a log house. Among its pupils were Mrs. Catherine Truby and her brothers Jacob and John Meckling. As early as 1810, Captain James Alexander established a newspaper, the Western Eagle, in Kittanning. The next newspaper was the Kittanning Columbian and Farmers and Mechanics Advertiser. The proprietor and publisher was Frederick Rohr, assisted by his younger brother, George Rohr. The Rohr name continued in Kittanning journalism. In 1834, Frederick Rohr and John Craw established the Armstrong Democrat, and John Rohr published and edited the Democratic Sentinel after 1864. Naturally, there were additional newspapers that existed in the interim from 1810 to the present Leader Times.
And along with Samuel Brady, no mention of the county's history would be complete without noting the famous Nellie Bly. The native of Cochrane Mills was an inspirational reporter. She created an international stir in the late 1800s when she worked for Joseph Pulitzer.
In the religious realm, 2 Presbyterian churches were organized and 2 log buildings were erected in 1802, about 8 miles apart, on the west side of the Allegheny River. By 1850, that number had increased to 65 churches. Thomas Hamilton presided at the first meeting of the Armstrong County Bible Society on September 15, 1828, at the Armstrong County Courthouse. James E. Brown served as secretary. The only educational facilities that existed until the Act of 1834, establishing free schools, were the Kittanning Academy and pay or subscription schools. At first, there was a strong opposition to a county superintendent. In fact, the first convention of school directors in May of 1854, the salary for the superintendent's post was set at $300. Eventually, the figure was raised to $400, and Reverend J.A. Campbell took the position. Since there were no good roads when the county was settled, one post office building between Kittanning and Indiana carried the mail. Since there were no good roads when the county was settled, one post office between Kittanning and Indiana carried the one weekly mail on horseback in 1818. Commercial traffic between Upper County and Pittsburgh was accomplished via canoes and keelboats propelled by men. After its completion, the Pennsylvania Canal provided transportation and Freeport became a hub for merchandise, and freight arrived from the east and items from Pittsburgh. After 1828, passenger goods and freight were transported up and down the Allegheny River in steamboats and barges, which towed them when there was sufficient water.
In 1856, a railroad was constructed, running from Kittanning to Pittsburgh, with Kittanning acting as the terminal point for about 9 years.
Armstrong County had about 20 stores by 1825. By 1840, the county boasted 79. Industry figures include, for 1840, 25 distilleries producing 2,633 gallons. 1830, 3 iron furnaces, one of the largest being Brady's Bend, yielding 40 tons per week. In 1830, 24 salt wells producing 65,500 barrels of salt per year. Naturally, other statistics are available, but certainly agriculture was one of the greatest industries, followed by coal. Although Armstrong County was not technically formed until March 12, 1800, from parts of Allegheny, Westmoreland, and Lycoming counties, its historic basis dates back to at least 20 years before the Declaration of Independence was signed.
This video would be remiss not to mention William Fram Johnson, Pennsylvania governor from 1848 to 1852.
Johnson was the 3rd governor of Pennsylvania under the Constitution of 1838 and was born in Greensburg, Westmoreland County. Armstrong County played a critical role in the French and Indian War, a role in the Revolutionary, and of course, a role in the Civil War. And less than 6 days after President Lincoln issued his call, a company of 114 men from the Armstrong County area left Kittanning by rail on April 18, 1861, for Pittsburgh and then on to Harrisburg.
Over 250 years later, what is the historical significance of the events at Kittanning? While it's not the outright military victory that is first conceived, Kittanning still provides a cause for remembrance. For example, Armstrong's ability to lead 300 men over 150 miles through the wilderness and still take Kittanning by surprise was a feat within itself.
This accomplishment was acknowledged through Fort Armstrong in Armstrong County, both of which were named for the hero of Kittanning. Barr's take on Kittanning, a valiant effort by a badly beleaguered Pennsylvania to gain a measure of retaliation in a war that was beyond the colony's ability to master, strangely echoes the opinion of the Reverend Thomas Barton expressed in 1757.
Killing a few Indians and burning their huts at Kittanning is an action not considerable in itself. It is the best, though, that appeared for this province, in a respect that both historical and modern sources can agree. The Battle of Kittanning should be remembered not as a military victory that was a turning tide for the war, but rather as the first occasion that Pennsylvania actively stood up for itself and refusing to give in to the power of fear.
Thanks for watching this video, and once again subscribe for more videos like this one.